Hi all, we are PTE4Sure. We are providing complete training to successfully crack PTE Exam with your desired score. We will provide you tips and tricks to get 65 and 79 in PTE. After enrolling, our course's material would be provided online. For more information, kindly contact through WhatsApp or other details mentioned in the video.
Let's take a look at this video of these little kids. They were offered the option of having one marshmallow immediately now or two marshmallows 15 minutes later, and you've got some very cute videotape of this experiment. So let's take a look. Okay, what we found is a very simple and direct way of measuring a competence that seems to make an important life difference. A researcher tells these preschoolers that she's going to leave the room if they wait for her to come back without eating the marshmallows. They'll get 2 marshmallows, or they can ring the bell and she'll come back right away, but then they only get 1 marshmallow. I would baby though you won't ring the bell. Okay, looking at children over time. Dr. Michelle has found that being able to wait longer at 4 has some pretty powerful implications, and what are those powerful implications is that later in life, they're more disciplined and have more self-control. Is that pretty much it? Well, they are more likely to achieve their life goals. They have better relationships. They did better on their SI. Is crazy, all because they waited 15 minutes for Don't Wash Me, and I think it is crazy. I probably would have eaten all 3, but yeah, me too. But actually yes, the ability to be able to pursue your goals. In this case it was stabbed 2 marshmallows versus 1, and not growing automatic and just grab the marshmallow is a very important skill. But I think a main point in mind in the making is that these skills can be cut if you're 14 or 40 or 4. It's not ever too late, and any child can learn them, any adult can teach them, and it's never too late. A language dies when the last person who speaks it dies. But sometimes people say it dies when the second last person who speaks it dies, because the last person has nobody to talk to. Well, of course, languages have come and gone throughout history as communities have come and gone. But what's happening now is something really quite extraordinary. Well, there are about 6,000 languages in the world at the moment, more or less. Nobody knows the exact number. Of these, about half of them are so seriously in danger, are likely to die out in the course of present century. Now the present century is 100 years, half is 3,000 languages. So, that means 1 language is dying out somewhere in the world, average every 2 weeks. There are all kinds of reasons why languages die. One is physical reason, when people are affected by famine, disease and earthquake. Another is genocide, when some countries deliberately stamp out a small language. The main reason is globalization. That is, some huge languages in the world, like English, Arabic, Spanish, and French, and these are like steamrollers crushing the smaller languages they find in their path. A great deal can be done to preserve endangered language. The first thing is that the people themselves must want the language to be preserved. That's very important. The second thing is that the powers that be must want the language to be preserved. They must be respect for the minority languages in their care. The third thing has to be there, of course, is cash. It costs quite a lot of money to preserve an endangered language. Think about it, you have to train the teachers, you have to write books for the children, and all sort of things. It doesn't cost extraordinary amount money, but it does cost a bit. So without money, endangered languages don't have a positive future.
A mild form of hallucination is known as a disturbance, and can occur in most of the senses above. These may be things like seeing movement in peripheral vision, or hearing faint noises and/or voices. Auditory hallucinations are very common in schizophrenia. They may be benevolent, telling the subject good things about themselves, or malicious, cursing the subject, etc. Auditory hallucinations of the malicious type are frequently heard, for example, people talking about the subject behind his or her back. Like auditory hallucinations, the source of the visual counterpart can also be behind the subject's back. Their visual counterpart is the feeling of being looked or stared at, usually with malicious intent. Frequently, auditory hallucinations and their visual counterpart are experienced by the subject together.
In 1943, what became known as the Green Revolution began when Mexico, unable to feed its growing population, shouted for help. Within a few years, the Ford and Rockefeller Foundations founded the International Rice Research Institute in Asia, and by 1962, a new strain of rice called IR8 was feeding people all over the world. IR8 was the first really big modified crop to make a real impact on world hunger. In 1962, the technology did not yet exist to directly manipulate the genes of plants, and so IR8 was created by carefully crossing existing varieties, selecting the best from each generation, further modifying them, and finally finding the best. Here is the power of modified crops. IR8, with no fertilizer, straight out of the box, produced 5 times the yield of traditional rice varieties. In optimal conditions with nitrogen, it produced 10 times the yield of traditional varieties. By 1980, IR36 resisted pests and grew fast enough to allow 2 crops a year instead of just 1, doubling the yield. And by 1990, using more advanced genetic manipulation techniques, IR72 was outperforming even IR36. The Green Revolution saw worldwide crop yields explode from 1960 through 2000.
Cities are interesting palaces. Some cities are carefully planned and built for a reason and reflect the needs of the people as it grows. Others are less consciously designed. Paris, for example, was originally founded in the 3rd century as a small village, and with every passing generation it grew in size and importance. It grew from medieval city to a modern city, but the transition was not always smooth. Emperor Napoleon had to hire someone to oversee the rebuilding of Paris. The man he chose was Haussmann. In 1853, Haussmann began the process of renovating France's capital city. His basic instructions were to bring the light and air into the central district, improve the sanitation and living areas, and make Paris a more modern, beautiful city. Not your average weekend renovation. Haussmann's project includes the destruction of old medieval neighborhood, widening of streets, building large parks and public squares, and addition of fountains and so lines. To add all this, the size of Paris had to be increased, doubled actually, and the Napoleons issued official decree annexing nearby suburbs to make them part of the city. One of the main priorities of the massive renovation was to connect all the districts together. If we think of Paris like a house, each district was its own room, existing essentially independently of the other districts. Napoleons wanted to be easier to travel between the most important districts and to create a sense of being one unified city, not a series of independent neighborhoods. So Haussmann created large avenue that connected districts. More than that, he made all the avenues look roughly the same. Buildings on major avenue were required to be roughly the same height and style, and even use the same color stones for the facade. The result was to remove any local characters and create a uniform Paris. For the first time, the city has a specific look, a style that people began to associate not with the districts but with Paris itself.
If you like our video, kindly subscribe our channel and also press below bell icon. Thank you.